For the following problem, we are going to use the intermediate value theorem to determine, does a 0 exist between -2 and -1 for the following function? All right, so sometimes we need to figure out, hey, do we have a 0 in this interval? So we're taking a look at our number line. Right, so this question is specifically asking us, we think we have a 0 between -2 and -1, but we want to know for sure, does a 0 exist there or not? So instead of actually solving the entire equation, we can use the intermediate value theorem to answer that question for us. So the way that we do that, if we want to know if a 0 exists between -2 and -1, it's simply evaluating. What we're going to do is we're going to find f of -2, right, plug -2 in for x, simplify the problem, get an answer. Do the same thing with -1. We're then going to turn around, plug in -1 into the equation, get an answer. So let's work on doing that first. If we plug in a -2, so let's see, -2 for every single x that we have here is going to look like this. All right, we're substituting x for -2, simplifying this. So let's see, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, that should be a -32 when we calculate that. Plus, again, we're taking care of all the exponents here first. Order of operations, exponents first. Drop down the 2, -2 to the 5th is -32. Drop down the plus 10, -2 times -2 times -2 is a -8. And then over here, -2 times -2 is a +4. And drop down 9. Let's multiply out in the next step. So 2 times -2, we get a -64 there, a -80 here, plus 28 plus 9. And when we add all of that together, we get -107. Right, so let's pause there real quick. Let's figure out f of -1. So we're just going to be plugging in a -1 into x for the same exact equation, right, just for -1, and we're going to simplify this. All right, so if we're dealing with a -1, we know 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is just a 1. All right, so if it's negative and it's raised to an odd power, it's going to stay negative, right? -1 times itself 5 times is still -1. -1 times itself 3 times is still -1. Over here, -1 times -1 is a +1, and drop down that 9. So this is really just a -2 minus a 10 plus a 7 plus a 9. So when we calculate that, -2 minus 10 is a -12, plus 7 makes that a -5, plus 9 makes that a +4. What we're looking for here, compare the two answers, right? They're always going to give you two values to plug in. What we're looking for is this. If there's a change in sign in your two answers, one is negative, one is plus, or maybe it was positive and then negative. If there is a change in sign, your answer is yes, a 0 exists within that interval. But if there is no change in sign, these were both negative, these were both positive, the answer would be no. It's essentially saying, hey, if you're going to be in the positive over here and then you still get a positive answer, you're not crossing the x-axis, which means there is no x-intercept. There is no 0 there. But if it was positive and then it went negative, you're definitely crossing that x-axis, which means there is a 0. So that's what that's telling you. Change in sign, yes. No change in sign would be a no.